Welcome to Money Talk Viewpoint. I'm Chantel Leeson. The most successful businesses have one thing in common. They know how to connect to the right people with the right message at the right time. And that's what we do at Money Talk Viewpoint. We connect you through our talk shows and podcasts. So our guests today are Jonathan and Katie Pfisterer, and they're going to talk to us about Medicare and its impact on your life and your well-being. Katie and Jonathan, how are you?
Good.
Great, Chantel. Thanks for having us.
Thank you for being here.
About being so much older. So it is case by case scenario.
I think you mentioned a point too, because see, there are a lot of older workers in the workplace now, and for numerous reasons. One, we're living so much longer that people just don't want to spend the next 35 years sitting at home, working in the garden. They want to keep themselves active for as long as possible. So some companies are allowing that. I've got a client of mine who just got a new job. He's 77 years old. So with the government. So they really are, people are still, and it's not because they have to, it's because sometimes they don't want to be at home. Some people just don't want to sit around the house for 40 hours a week.
We find that people retire more than once after 65 for that very reason.
Is that right?
Or they stay retired for 6 months. Now they're stir crazy from sitting at home. They want to get out of the house. And from our experience, we see a lot of more people going back to work just on a part-time basis, or as a 1099 basis, or what have you, for that reason. It's not for the health insurance. It's for the peace of mind.
I found that even jobs that people think aren't glamorous, like I found people working at stores like Target.
The Home Depot's another big one where they're on their feet, they're walking around and they're talking to people. And that to them is a great day.
You know what? I'm glad you brought that up, because I've heard people say, oh, and the guy was old and he was still working at Walmart. But they forget that guy's probably living by himself. The kids have left the area. There's no one there. And going to work is what keeps him emotionally and physically happy and healthy.
Right. Well, everyone's situation's different, right? There's no simple answer for anything.
Not everybody wants to be down on the beach in Florida. I mean, of course, with the weather now, who wants to be down there?
Well, there's that for sure.
Absolutely. But getting back to, I lost my train of thought. We were talking about people working for corporations. So if they're working for like any Fortune 5, or it doesn't have to be a Fortune 500, it could be any corporation. And they're particularly for the smaller companies. If you're on a smaller company, they really don't want you on their medical payroll, because if you're on the medical benefits, if you have any illness, it raises am I right? Does it raise their rates if you have?
It could. Yeah, that's the thing with group rate, right? So it's the average of all those people. So, and then sometimes there's a pension retirement package that has Medicare and tied to it as well. So when they do retire, they're like, oh yeah, we have a union or we have a pension or whatever, and that takes care of the retirement benefit as well. Same thing. Is that the right choice? Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. And it's just really dependent on how good or bad that program is versus the state. We come across it where it is and where it isn't, or it's almost. So
one of the things I wanted to add in there is there's sometimes confusion where people think they have to have Medicare at the same time, and they don't. There's no point in double paying. So you don't need to pay for your group health insurance at work and pay for Medicare. However, Part A, they've been paying into that their whole life. At the bottom of your check where you see those deductions, they've been paying into that. So you could just take Part A if you would like, and that becomes your secondary insurance.
So what would be the secondary insurance, your Medicare or your group insurance?
So your group health would be primary, and then they would bill Medicare as a secondary if you chose to take just your Part A.
Well, let me ask a question about that. What's the benefit of that? Does your group insurance pay better benefits, or is there something they don't cover? Or here, I leave it to put in your hands there. Give us some feedback on that.
You're right, both of those things.
Okay.
So they could have better benefits. That's why you're still keeping your group health insurance versus totally going over to Medicare. Or there's a portion of it that's not covered. And so normally you would get a bill for that amount. However, if you have your Part A going at that time, they would then go on to bill Medicare, and then you would only be responsible for that portion that Medicare didn't cover after.
Seems to be mostly used when the group insurance has a massively huge deductible for their hospital expenditures, and where your Part A's deductible for hospitals like $1,600, give or take, changes every year. So there's a right time and a right place for it, but and if you're going to the regular doctor for a checkup, it doesn't really pertain to you at that point.
So let me go back and ask that question one more time then. I think I got it, but I'm not clear exactly. So if you had both Medicare and your group benefit package. If you hit a medical expense, let's say you have to have some kind of surgery, and your deductible is going to be a couple of $1,000, you can use the Medicare to cover that?
Well, so surgery is considered Part B, not Part A, right?
Okay.
So Part A, you get some blood, you get the hospice care and the hospital, and each one of those has a co-insurance or a deductible before you have to meet it first. So like I said, more times than not, it doesn't really do much for you in our experience. Someone else's could be different, but generally speaking, your primary insurance is going to be your savior when it comes to that, unless you have like a $10,000 deductible.
Oh, okay. Yes. Okay. Yes. Right. Exactly. You mentioned hospice. I'm hopping all over the place now.
I know we're jumping.
Well, you know what? I think that the audience wants to hear that, though.
That's lay it on us.
Go ahead.
No, yeah, you get a question about hospice or
Tell me about that. How does what does that cover? Is that something? Is that in-home care or out-home care, or what does that cover exactly? What is that?
So end stage, right? Your end of life care and how that is. And usually that's done in a facility. And there's a lifetime allotment of days. Now, granted, when you're in hospice, that's usually not a 2-year adventure for you. It's usually 6 months or less, it's my understanding. So, and then there's also thresholds for co-insurance and co-pays and deductibles when it comes to that by itself without any kind of gap coverage. This hospice is not long-term care. That is completely different.
Oh, okay. Okay, very important to know that. And and I want to cover long-term. I'm going to go through couple of questions first, but then I want to go over that one pack.
Sure, we'll circle back, no problem. Yeah.
Because that's with an aging population, people need to prepare themselves. We're not going to be sexy and gorgeous all of our lives. We're not going to look like the Kardashians.
Despite our best efforts, yes.
Right. So we have to prepare for that phase when we're not as agile and not as able to get around as well. Let me go back to some basic questions here, though. When does somebody qualify to enroll, I should say?
So